Hey, so if anyone asks, this is definitely the first time I've tried to film this, and I am not coming back from nearly crying from the last time I tried to film this. Okay, let's do this. Also, you can thank me for making my bed. You're welcome. Today's video is basically a status update where there literally aren't enough characters in the world to put it anywhere in text. It's also... How do I put this? It's also really hard for me to film and to articulate because I've been scripting this video in my head as if my head is this world where everything is the parallel to the real world. And I think every person who has thought through a scenario in their brain realizes that things really don't go the way you think they will. Yeah, the brain is good at thinking things up, but never turns out the same in the real world. So I'm just gonna make this video the way that I think that I want to. I'm gonna probably not like it anyway, and I need to be okay with that. Am I trying to convince myself or just tell you? I don't know. So yeah, status update. I am alive. I did finish uni in October. I did rather well, thank you for asking. I got my first 7 in counselling skills, which I have now added to my list of things I'm good at because the last few months have really brought me down and I'm still kind of just running on like adrenaline at this point, I think, because the chaos has not ended and I need to keep going, but I realize that I'm struggling. Did that even make sense? Shit's been tough and I'm making a list of things I'm good at, and one of them is counselling skills because I got my first 7, which is a high distinction. None of you care. Moving on. If you follow me on Twitter, Instagram or Snapchat, which you really should, if you do, and if you were in the beginning of September, end of August, you would know that beginning of September I got some rather bad news in terms of my health, which I was also told, like, okay, in my head it sounded like you're gonna get cancer. Realistically, I now realize that it wasn't. You have a greater risk of potentially developing cancer years later, which is still a chance, but that would have been a chance regardless of whether I'd gotten those results or not, but it still scared me. Then the very next week on the same day, I found out that my thyroid was low because my immune system is a fucking badass bitch and just attacked the crap out of it. And then later that day I got a call from my brother, which I don't get calls from my brother. Like, we talk on Facebook Messenger sometimes, but he called me and he told me that our dog was hit by a car and died. And sorry, that still makes me really sad because I love her so much, but she is being looked after now. And then I think the next week or the same week, no, it was the same week because I asked my brother if he had told our mum, who I at the time was not talking to, and he said no, her phone is disconnected, which is worrisome for everyone because I was no contact and my dad and my brother were in Sydney at the time. And that was the only way they could contact her. Apparently she hadn't been on Facebook for 2 weeks as well. Her phone had been disconnected because she wasn't paying bills, which is a massive change in her behaviour because my entire life, and I'm turning 27 next year, she's been the bitch who pays the bills. Not because she had the money, but because she had the memory to and the energy to. Like, that was her thing. Not her thing, but you get what I mean. So that was a shock. Then we find out that she apparently also lost her phone because her real estate agent, which we also didn't know about, called my brother and told him that someone was asking for money for the phone that they found. So extortion and probably theft. And I had to get involved because it was terrifying to know that my mother was in this state where she wasn't being herself and there was a danger involved because this guy was apparently potentially dangerous. Thankfully, we haven't heard from him since, and the police are not looking for the phone, which is a whole other story. But point is, I went and saw my mum and I held a one-man intervention and she went to detox a few days later and left after a day. So she really, really tried. Obviously sarcasm. After that, I was like, fuck you for playing me, and I moved on with my life, had my assignments, did my exams, did really well. Did I mention? I didn't mention. Somewhere in November, the bank told my dad, hey, we loaned you money for the house that you're living in, and we want it back. So Dad, with his job of sitting at home for free, had to sell the house. And that was my childhood home, and that was kind of tough. And I think that settled end of September. What month are we in now? December. Yeah, so that was September as well. My family childhood home got sold, and my dad is now living with me. Yeah, so November rolls around, because October was just me doing my thing. I don't know what happened in October. Let's just not think about it. November rolls around and I get a call from my mum's neighbour November, saying that she'd locked herself out of her apartment and a locksmith needed to be called, and they were asking me if I could take her for the night, and I was like, no way in hell, bitch. Not just because I didn't want my mum knowing where I lived at the time, but also I didn't have the ability to get to her, to bring her back to me, and I wasn't going to pay for her to come to me because I'm like still short on cash from looking after her in September at this point. Then a few days later, we get a text from a complete stranger. My brother gets a message from a complete stranger saying, hey, just letting you know your mum is here. And my brother lives in Sydney, and my brother lives in Sydney, and my mum is in Brisbane. Totally different states, not close, not like I'll just pop over and see you at the pub. So this complete stranger was messaging my brother because my mum's phone had died, and apparently my mum was waiting on my brother, which is a hallucination or a delusion. At this point it's just a delusion, but this innocent, sweet, complete stranger was kind enough to reach out to my brother because my mum was distressed about waiting on him. And so I reached out to this guy and was like, hey, what the hell's going on? What do you mean my mum's phone is dead? She shouldn't have a phone. Turns out she's bought 2 new phones after buying 2 phones. She's got 4 phones that she's had in the last 3 months because she keeps losing them and not knowing how to use them or saying they're broken and buying a new one. That's another story. My mum had this delusion that my brother was coming to visit her, and then later that night I get a text from her neighbour saying that she was hallucinating that my brother was there. And I'm panicking at this point, obviously. That was November 10th and 11th. 12th, she has a fall and ends up in hospital, and they call my brother because apparently she had told them that my brother was at her apartment. And I said, oh no, honey, that ain't true. Get a handcuff and use it on my mom to the bed, because she's not well. And thankfully they held her until the next day. But she cleared medical and they let her go. That was the 13th. And this is after I literally told the doctor, I was like, if you let her go, it'll happen again. She'll end up back in hospital. At what point does this become an issue? The 15th, she falls because she's out the front of her apartment on the street wearing her underwear and falls and fractures her skull and is bleeding in her head. So she ends up at a different hospital. And these guys, same thing. 2 days later, they're like, yeah, she's probably fine, so we're letting her go. And I'm like, I'm telling you she's not at all. She's confused. The previous hospital has told us that she's got alcohol-related dementia. Like, it's struggle street at this point, right? And I'm grasping at straws to keep her there, but they can't because she's medically fine. Also, they thought, remember that bleed that I told you she had? They let her go because they thought that had stopped. And then, I don't know if it was 2 days again, it seems like a pattern. She has like a stroke-like incident because the bleed was in fact still going. And she ends up back in the hospital where she is today. The stroke wasn't really a stroke, it was just the fact that the blood was... A stroke is basically where a clot gets into the brain and stops communication, from my understanding. But if you've got a brain bleed, you can have stroke-like symptoms because it kind of works the same way, I'm guessing. I don't fucking know. Either that, or she had stopped bleeding because she had clotted in the part where she was bleeding, and then something's happened and a clot has moved and caused an actual stroke. But they refused to use those words. I tried to ask, is it a stroke? And they're like, oh, we haven't confirmed that, we haven't confirmed that. I'm like, ask all these other questions, and they're like, yeah, maybe. But then with the stroke, they're like, no. So she's there now. They put some holes in her skull. They put holes in her skull to get rid of some of the blood from the bleeding that she obviously never healed from. And she's supposed to be out today. And I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do about that. Because, I don't know, she's still not well. And the hospital doesn't want her. And I'm fucking tired. So, I guess my status right now is exhausted. I'm excited to get some of the probiotics that I use for my depression because your girl needs them. It's just, like, what's next? You know? And it doesn't help that when my mum had her first fall, which isn't really the first one. My dad and I went to her apartment to kind of clean it up and find bills because she's not paid any bills. She's apparently being sued by the council. Like, and it's of course my responsibility to fix these problems. So we're cleaning up her apartment and we just find discharge paper after discharge paper after discharge paper, and medical certificate after medical certificate after medical certificate, and like all these conditions and all these presenting problems, and these, she's just for the past year probably been using the fucking hospital service as a hotel, like a revolving door, and it's exhausting because now she's really not well and I don't know what works and what doesn't. Like, what does she know and what does she not know? What can she not do? What do I actually need to do for her? I can only assume bills are going to be one of them, but we tried to get the power of attorney sorted out so that I could do that for her. And then she goes to the bank, which was the last step, and tells the bank, oh no, that's not what I wanted. So the bank couldn't set it up. And then a few days later she was in hospital for the fucking bleed. So it's just, I mean, obviously exhausting is an understatement. And I really tried to like keep this video lighthearted, but I think that would be insincere because the situation isn't. Oh, that was another thing that happened in September. Centrelink decided I have a debt with them, which does not make sense to me. And like, I'm trying so hard to fight that, but I also just feel like if paying you the fucking money is going to make something stop. So I have a list of things that I'm good at that I'm working on, and I'm going to read that to you because I don't know how to end this video. Counseling skills, as I mentioned, because I got my first 7. Self-discipline, but then in brackets I have sometimes, honestly only in specific circumstances, so probably shouldn't make the list. Hiding when I'm crying. Finding a positive spin on things. Yeah, I made this list because I didn't think I was good at anything, so that's a positive spin on that, I guess. I don't know. Patiently explaining and re-explaining things, which is a blessing because I need to do that a lot with my mum now. Cooking, but I was hesitant about this. Self-doubt? Question mark? Because I think I'm good at cooking, but then I also don't want to put that because that's like braggadocious, you know, to be like, oh, I'm good at cooking. I don't know that I am. I mean, I don't know. I've had a few people say that my cooking is good. At least I think I've had people say that my cooking is good. Maybe it's not, I don't know. Again, self-doubt. And then finding patterns and making jokes about shit that isn't funny. So, here we are. So that's why I haven't uploaded videos in a while, I guess. And my hair, I hate when it's not laid. Sorry, this is, I don't know why I'm talking about my hair now. Probably distraction. I hate when it's not laid because it goes like that and it looks flat against here. So I don't know why they don't layer it. I also haven't been to the gym in a long ass time because my dad's here and that's been great. It's just, it's been a lot. I do have videos that I want to edit and upload, but my computer probably can't do that. So I need a new computer. I don't need a new computer, but I don't know how I'm supposed to edit these videos because I've got 2, maybe 3 videos of me I tried to blank for a month. That means that I have like 30 clips or more, and apparently my computer isn't good enough for videos, even though I specifically wanted it for videos and for streaming, but that's okay. So if you know what I need to put in my computer to make it edit videos better, tell me, because I want to edit videos. I really want to get my hair cut. Yeah. So, I have no way of ending this video. I don't know how to end the video, and I'm not feeling good, which should come as no surprise given what I've just shared. Also, if you can think of anything that I'm good at, that you know of, share it down below. I'm just annoyed. I don't know what else to say. So, hope you're having an amazing day or morning or evening, whatever time of day it is for you. That is my vlog sign out. Anyway, that was all. So, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for listening to me talk about shit. Can't wait to go back to the gym. And it's just way too fucking hot in here. I'm going, okay, bye.